This is Tony for the A Minute to Midnight team, and this is the third video in a series about the New World Order in 2018, and I think some of it's pretty mind-blowing. It covers quite a few different areas, but you'll see they're all interconnected, and I want to begin with 3 music videos that I will analyse. Now, the first music video I want to briefly look at is U2's song Get Out of Your Own Way, and they are showing, I think, clearly that they are just Illuminati puppets displaying the same old tired socialist agenda with rioting. You see flames here like this tyre burning and a Molotov cocktail on the other side of the street. There's too much symbolism in this video for me to detail all of it, but let's just say it's basically an agenda to fight back, a sort of socialist agenda mixed with spiritual metaphors, and even they have Jesus turning into a skeleton here, which I guess is pretty much close to blasphemous, really. And nowhere in the gospel do we see Jesus linked with political activism like they have done here, but it gets even worse in that they associate him with the LGBT rainbow. And we also have Jesus here linked with Islam, which is just typical of the one world religion that the Illuminists are pushing left, right and centre. And you have the same old tired references to Donald Trump being portrayed as a white supremacist with KKK in the background as well. There are obvious references to the United States here. You have another Molotov cocktail and fight back and bite back. You've got a rat running on the treadmill. The rat happens to be black and white, which suits the dualism that you'll find in all of these occult inspired videos. And here we see it again with a yin and yang. This runs a lot deeper than just the racial tension issue, which is what most people will see in the black and white. It's actually the dualistic belief system of the Luciferians. That's what this is ultimately all about with the black and white, and we'll see a lot more of that as we go. You can also see them create Donald Trump's wall here as well. The dualistic belief in as above, so below can be clearly seen in the pyramids here. That is an essential part of the one world religious belief system. You will find here an interesting thing. You have burning dollars, which fits in with the Economist magazine owned by the Rothschild, the 1988 cover, and we will see burning money again in another video we will be looking at shortly. Here we are in 2018, and transhumanism and artificial intelligence are being increasingly pushed on the population, and that is very evident in Justin Timberlake, or what I like to call Timber Snake's video. Absolute garbage music in my opinion, and the message behind it is total transhumanism. In the video for his song Filthy, Justin Timberlake does a Steve Jobs impression. It's interesting to note that the video is directed by Mark Romanek. He is also behind Jay-Z, Janet Jackson and Taylor Swift videos. Very much this is Illuminati plotting going on and showing us what they're doing in this music video. The video is totally sexual in nature, and the robot, instead of being told to take his filthy hands off, is told to put his filthy hands on to people. And Justin Timberlake in the video behind the scenes is directing the dance movement supposedly of this robot. The song makes regular reference to the number 6 and the beast, which is referenced in a sexual kind of way as well. Then right at the end of the video, Justin Timberlake, the human version, disintegrates entirely, I guess to be taken over by the transhumanist entity instead. And it should be noted that the stupid dumbed down sheeple are cheering when this happens. Another mind-controlling video from the Snake is Supplies, Timberlake's latest song. This video is equally full of Illuminati symbolism, with the dualistic belief system I mentioned earlier very prominent throughout this one. It's full of the black and white equals and opposites. You've got black and white people. You have, for example, in this particular frame, 4 alligators. You've got cars going in opposite directions. You've got people that are black, people that are white. You have also got 818, which is again dualism. You've got the 8 divided and then another 8. The all-seeing eye and the pyramid features big time in this one. You have a bunch of people worshipping a pyramid with the eye and the capstone. They're bowing down to worship it, with a light being the eye. You have this pyramid being set on fire, but what you find is it's not the actual pyramid that's burning up, it is US dollars. So once again you have the burning money as part of the theme of the video, which is really interesting, I find. But the people still carry on worshipping the pyramid in spite of it, in spite of the money being burnt up. And again you have pyramids in the rafters, pyramid shapes as beam support. You have people suspended like in cryogenics or something, almost like meat. You have DNA shaped flames, and it ends up with an apocalyptic destruction. And amidst the destruction you see a child say the following:
"You're still asleep? Wake up!"
So yeah, wake up. You're asleep, alright, asleep to the agenda that's being portrayed through this whole music video. Now, as far as the burning dollars go, they want to push us into a cashless society, which will eventually be one global currency. In the meantime, they're pushing the drive towards this cashless society by demonizing cash, such as in this example of an article that featured on stuff.co.nz called "Auckland Leading Drive Towards Cashless Society," Visa says. For hundreds of years people have used cash. It was normal, but now it's only for criminals. At least that's what they try to tell you. Tax dodgers and criminals who want to not be able to be traced easily, and paying for things like illicit drugs, which is complete nonsense. Most of the world of cash is not put into those things at all, but that's what they want to make it seem like, so that they can push everyone into a digital cashless society. They want to be able to chip, track and trace everybody, and that will occur when they crash this system that they currently have. But by then the infrastructure will be in place, and they will bring a completely new digital currency which will be global at some point into the equation. Now, one of those illustrious New World Order backing bankers was the late David Rockefeller, who died at 101 last year. David Rockefeller left a Rolodex collection to beat them all. According to the Daily Mail, he had an incredible catalogue of 200,000 index cards detailing meetings with all sorts of people, including Mandela and Donald Trump, and of course his good friend Henry Kissinger, who I have mentioned before in other videos as being the key player, who seems to have been regarded as a friend, a close friend, by pretty much everyone, from of course Rockefeller to Evelyn de Rothschild, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And of course Henry Kissinger has called for a new world order far more times than I can recall. And David Rockefeller documented the meetings with all of the people that he had to do with, 200,000 cards in all, as I just mentioned, because of course he was the CEO of Chase Manhattan Bank. Over the course of his career, Rockefeller visited 103 countries and met more than 200 heads of state, and he maintained his Rolodex collection of cards until he died at 101 years old. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger earned the most cards after his decades-long friendship with Rockefeller. Rockefeller's Rolodex reflects the meetings with people such as Kissinger, and Kissinger had the most cards, 35 of them, because he was such a close friend of David Rockefeller. And one card mentions Kissinger being knighted by Queen Elizabeth in 1995, and the card read, "He's not to be referenced as Sir Henry as he is an American." Rockefeller gave Kissinger a copy of the cards detailing hundreds of encounters since they first met in 1955. "I am astonished that we have seen each other so much," Kissinger later said, adding that the cards meant a lot to him. A good friend of Henry Kissinger is this man, Sir Evelyn de Rothschild. I believe part of the end times falling away and the global religion that we will see come with watered down Christianity mixed with other religions to become the religious arm of the global beast, and will have to be the subject of another video. But it is interesting to note that Sir Evelyn de Rothschild co-founded the interfaith consultations between Jews, Christians and Muslims in 1984 together with HRH Duke of Edinburgh and Crown Prince Al Hassan, head of the Club of Rome. And he, that's Sir Evelyn, was patron of the interfaith consultations. Consultations began in 1984 and a declaration of a code of ethics was finally drawn up in 1994 when Sir Evelyn was the patron. The Rothschild family has been at the head of the global banking system for a long time, and when they speak it is worthwhile listening. Have a listen to a couple of things that Evelyn has said.
I think the challenge also is whether we should move towards an international currency. Television, as you have some very bright people the other day, who said, which I agree with completely, the stock market doesn't really reflect the economy of a country.
Sir Evelyn de Rothschild was the head of The Economist magazine when that 1988 cover with the Phoenix was put out, and also note the stock market is continuously going higher and higher pretty much at the moment, so that is a warning sign. Okay, now I'm going to look at two people with the same name basically, David de Rothschild. And both of them are important for different reasons, both part of the famous Rothschild family. First one I want to look at is David Mayer de Rothschild. Now, if the Antichrist, the false Messiah, was going to look like anything like Jesus, then could he look like this guy? Now, I'm not saying he's the Antichrist, so don't quote me as saying that, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility either. David Mayer de Rothschild is the son of Evelyn de Rothschild, who we've already looked at, from the Rothschild banking family. He was born in 1978, and he's developed quite a reputation as an adventurer. David Mayer de Rothschild became famous when he took his plastiki, a 60-foot catamaran made out of 12,500 reclaimed plastic bottles, back in 2010 on a voyage sailing from San Francisco to Sydney. Some even labelled him the Plastic Jesus during that voyage. He also has gone to both poles, North Pole and South Pole. Now, what I've discovered about David Mayer de Rothschild during my research has pretty much blown me out of the water. It is just far out. As you see and hear what I'm uncovering, I'm sure you'll understand why. In 2001 he bought an 1,100-acre organic farm in New Zealand and took part in a polar expedition. He basically turned into an enterprising eco-adventurer from that point. David de Rothschild was awarded an accolade of emerging explorer by National Geographic. He was appointed an international ambassador by NGO Clean Up the World and nominated as Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. In 2007, de Rothschild was named one of GQ magazine's Men of the Year, being the sole individual named in the environmentalist category. In 2007 he wrote The Living Earth Global Warming Survival Handbook, 77 Essential Skills to Stop Climate Change or Live Through It. In 2008 he was the winner of the Kids' Choice Awards UK Greenie Award. In 2009 he was named by the United Nations Environmental Programme as a climate hero. David de Rothschild is 6'4" tall, and apparently he classes himself as bisexual. Now remember, David Mayer de Rothschild is the son of one of the most powerful banking men in the world. Some say his father, Evelyn de Rothschild, is the head of the Illuminati today. And in an interview on egonzender.com, there's an article titled The Storyteller, David Mayer de Rothschild, Eco-Activist. You will See, part of the interview, he says this. This is David de Rothschild's words. Right now, we are seeing our economic model collapsing around us. The model is broken. We're too scared to ask the right questions and take the time to find the right answers. The only way we're going to fix the system is by breaking the shell that encompasses our current understanding, which is trapped. We have to create an integrated approach to business, to our political leadership, to our way as citizens on this planet. Nature does nothing in isolation, and neither should we. Does that sound like Illuminati talk? Does that sound like a collapse of the system and a new system, a completely new system? I think it certainly hints at it. But as we go down this rabbit trail, it gets even more interesting from here. David de Rothschild is quoted in an August 2015 article in the New York Times as saying, everyone's like, well, surely you should just be a banker. And I'm like, well, it could be an obvious route, but if I have a choice, which I'm fortunate enough that I do I want to sit in an office all day with a tie on? Okay, now, David de Rothschild has a label called The Lost Explorer. Here is a description. British environmentalist and author Mr. David de Rothschild is the man behind The Lost Explorer, a lifestyle brand that places emphasis on green innovation. Drawing inspiration from his travels, the founder creates pieces for your daily adventures, no matter how big or small. Alright, now just look at their logo. The Lost Explorer's logo, with the pyramid and the circle. How Illuminati is that? But it gets even more interesting because look at this. Maybe you've noticed that the date above the logo says 2025. This isn't a mistake. The Lost Explorer is an experiment and doesn't exist yet, just as in many ways you and I don't exist yet. Who will we be tomorrow? Who knows? Everything is changing fast, and staying nimble is how we future-proof ourselves, but we're here for the long haul. Now look at the logo. Bam! It's a phoenix and the sun. The phoenix is about as Illuminist as it gets. Remember the phoenix, it has to rise from the ashes of all the currencies? That's on the cover of the 1988 Economist magazine. His father, Evelyn de Rothschild, was actually the head of the Economist magazine at the time that cover was put out. And also, all of the products of the Lost Explorer have a pyramid on it. So there you go, folks. For those that know much about the Illuminati and the plan, it is actually known as the plan. Many defectors have said that's what they call it, the plan, and you'll find that term being used by the Lucius Trust, which was formerly the Lucifer Trust. Have a look here at a quote from David Mayer de Rothschild whilst here he is skateboarding in the picture. Above it, it says, his 30s have been about using that experience and focusing his energies on formulating a plan. And I think my 40s will be spent implementing that plan. And considering that he's 39 years old now, that must mean that sometime during 2018 he's going to turn 40. And remember, the year 2018 is the year that the Phoenix was supposed to rise, according to the 1988 Economist magazine. The Lost Explorer does have Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and here are some pictures from their Instagram page, which I'm sorry, but some of them are somewhat offensive, and it is hard to know whether it's de Rothschild himself that's posting them or not, but it is his company. You can definitely see some anti-Trump sentiment there, and there is a pyramid and raising boys and girls the same way. Again, the anti-Trump sentiment is there, whether you like Trump or not. There he is with the United Nations logo beside him as well, so it shows you this is his Instagram. Before I move on to the second of the David de Rothschilds, I just want to play this short piece of an interview with David Mayer de Rothschild recorded by We Are Change in 2010. There's nothing leading up to this that would lead you to suspect he's been led on in this conversation. Just listen to it.
How about a handshake?
Yeah, of course. I'm not human. I don't have any reptilia coming out of anywhere, you know.
Did you hear what he just said? Listen to it again.
I'm not human. I'm not human. I'm not human. I don't have any reptilia coming out of anywhere, you know.
Now that's pretty bizarre unless you know what Illuminists are taught when they're growing up. Then it makes sense. Still, it's a strange comment for him to have made. This next bit is a minute or so later in the conversation.
Totally on your page, and so I know that I'm seen as some sort of, like I said, shift-shaping lizard from the ninth dimension who's blah 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 and all the rest of it, you know.
Now I want to look at the second of the David de Rothschilds, and that is Baron David René de Rothschild, who is part of the French arm of the Rothschild family, and he was born in 1942. He is the son of Guy, or Guy, however you pronounce it, de Rothschild, and in 2003, following the retirement of Sir Evelyn de Rothschild as head of N.M. Rothschilds & Sons in London, the UK and French firms merged to become one umbrella entity called Group Rothschild. Ownership was shared between the French and the British branches of the family under the leadership of David de Rothschild. In 2007, the British branch sold their share to the French branch, and the French branch now fully owns N.M. Rothschild & Sons, of which David de Rothschild is chairman, and also chairman of Rothschild Continuation Holdings. There's a fascinating article that was put out in the Daily Mail back in 2013, Rothschild versus Rothschild, how financial genius Nat was brought down to earth by his own cousin. Nat Rothschild, the son of Jacob Rothschild, had been touted to become the next family head. But it says here, today, for Nat Rothschild, that glittering prize of one day becoming the family patriarch has surely disappeared forever. Now, I won't get into all the details as to what happened, but it is rumoured that David de Rothschild had a hand in the downfall of his cousin Nathaniel. Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, now in retirement, declared in 1996 the first important strength of the family is unity. Baron David de Rothschild, the head of N.M. Rothschild, wanted to keep the Rothschild name intact even when the crisis revolves around another member of the family, according to this article. Now this section's really interesting. To the Rothschilds, a question of leadership succession is treated almost like an ascension to the throne in a monarchy. It is an obsession that has enabled them to keep their name above the door of the firm, while other traditional city families have long since disappeared. No one should underestimate how much the Rothschilds care for the reputation of their family name and how they will preserve it through a line of succession which does not necessarily favour the eldest son. When Baron Victor relinquished his chairmanship on his 70th birthday in 1980, it didn't pass to his eldest son Jacob, now Lord Rothschild and Nat's father, as has been expected. Instead, it moved sideways to his cousin Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, who made it plain that his successor would be David, then his deputy, who comes from the French side of the family. Sir Evelyn told the French newspaper Le Monde, "If something happens to me, there is David. If something happens to him, there is Amschel." David took over in 2003, but the throne will never go to Amschel, Nat's tragic uncle, who actually, that's a whole other story, whether he committed suicide or was murdered, which we won't get into here today. Amschel was the younger half-brother of Nat's father, Lord Jacob Rothschild. Jacob, a spirited and confident banker, some say he was passed over for the top job because he was too spirited, having lost what many saw as his birthright, cut his business links with the family. He started his own investment trust, RIT, with spectacular success. So Baron David de Rothschild is the current head of the Rothschild dynasty, and his successor, heir in waiting, is his only son Alexander. who was born in 1980 and is currently on the board of directors of Boyges, which is basically involved in sustainable development, and he is also the deputy CEO of Rothschild & Co. So Baron David de Rothschild is at least the head of the banking aspect of the Rothschild family. Baron David de Rothschild sees a new world order in global banking governance. Baron Rothschild shares most people's view that there is a new world order. In his opinion, banks will deleverage and there will be a new form of global governance. But you have to be careful of caricatures. We don't want to go from ultra-liberalism to protectionism. That was back in 2008, but perhaps now 10 years on, we will see the real implementation of the New World Order coming about when we have the next financial crisis.
Well, see, the whole thing is these people control the money, so they make all the rules. You understand? And they put whatever rules they want into effect. And the truth is, America has really become a socialist, communistic country. And everybody says it's a capitalistic country. It's not a capitalistic country. You know, how could it be capitalistic when you have a central bank? That's the first. It can't be. You know,
It's a planned economy.
It's a planned economy. It's a phony. If they want to create prosperity, they just print dollars. They just make dollars or put digits into the economy, and now you have prosperity. You don't have real prosperity. You don't have real manufacturing. You just have money being injected in. It's an infusion of credit,
Which only makes the government go into more debt.
Into more debt.
Right, now let's fast forward January 24th, 2018, this article in stuff.co.nz. It is frankly scary. World financial system as stretched as before 2008 crash. US President Donald Trump's America First trade policy and growing gap between rich and poor dominated discussions on the second day of the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. The world financial system is as dangerously stretched today as it was at the peak of the last bubble. But this time, the authorities are caught in a policy trap with few defences left, a veteran central banker has warned. All the market indicators right now look very similar to what we saw before the Lehman crisis. But the lesson has somehow been forgotten, said Professor William White, the Swiss-based head of the OECD's review board and ex-chief economist for the Bank of International Settlements. For those that aren't aware, the Bank of International Settlements is pretty much the central bank for central banks. It is the financial hub. This time central bankers are holding a particularly ferocious tiger by the tail because global debt ratios have surged. Central banks have been pouring fuel on the fire, he told the Daily Telegraph, speaking before the World Economic Forum in Davos. The global fallout could be violent.
Nationalism versus internationalist values, Donald J. Trump versus much of the world. This year's World Economic Forum annual meeting in the Swiss ski resort of Davos offers as wide a perspective on the global economy as any in recent years.
Instead of globalization, the power of protectionism is putting its head up. Their wish is not to save themselves from globalization, but to change the natural flow of globalization.
Special attention this year is reserved for Donald Trump, whose closing address on Friday is the meeting's most anticipated moment. Protests have already taken place nearby. Trump is the first US president to visit Davos in 18 years, and one who stands apparently opposed to the Davos ethos of globalism with his America First policy of economic nationalism. A general upswing in world economies has lifted the mood of many, but they'll be asking themselves here, is it sustainable?
So we even have the mainstream media warning about a possible global financial implosion. George Orwell, who wrote 1984, his real name was Eric Blair, was educated at Eton, and he was a long-time friend of Aldous Huxley, who wrote another book called Brave New World. Both of them were members of the Fabian Society. The Fabian Society was named after a Roman general who employed strategies to wear down his enemies over a long period of time. And this is like how the global agenda has been playing out. We're moving towards socialism, which is the heart of Fabianism. Just as with Roman General Fabius and the plan to do it over a long period of time, we are seeing that happening through the Fabian socialist agenda today. And the end goal is a new world order that will, I think, be a blend of the Orwell and Huxley ideas. The Fabian Society's crest is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they also use the tortoise as a motto, I think for obvious reasons on that one. The Rothschilds and the Rockefellers have been allies of the Fabian Socialists since the early days. In fact, David Rockefeller wrote a thesis on the Fabian Society at Harvard. The Fabian Society were supporters of the League of Nations and the United Nations, and don't forget, these people want a socialist world government at the core of their belief system. And in the end, global crisis is the vehicle they will use to try and get their world government. And even the New Zealand Fabian Society's website has an article headed, "Is Another Financial Crash Imminent?" So there you go. I'm reminded of Mark chapter 13 where it says, "Now learn the parable from the fig tree. When its branch has become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near." So also, when you see these things happening, know that it is near at the doors. That's 29. And back in 22 it says, "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect." So we are going to get some sort of a world government according to the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel and others. But keep your eyes on the prize, the upward call of Christ, and don't forget Philippians 4:19 that says, "And my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus." So I hope you got something good out of this that you can learn, and don't forget, A Minute to Midnight is run completely by donations. We really do appreciate it when you help us, because there's a lot of work goes into this, the production of these videos, etc. Visit our website, aminutetomidnight.com, and we will see you with more videos and more A Minute to Midnight show episodes and articles in the very near future. Until then, this is Tony saying, have a great week.